Hey guys, we're in Southern California at Raleigh, North American headquarters. We're checking out one of my favorite bikes from them this year. This is the Lore IE. It comes in 3 frame sizes, and they've all got this, what I would call mid-step frame design. So that top tube is really drops down, so there's a lower standover height, really clean lines. I love how it extends back into those seat stays, and then it's got this awesome suspension up front. So this is a RockShox Judy, 15 millimeter through axle with boost hub spacing, so that's 110 millimeters instead of 100, and that gives the spokes a better bracing angle, and it provides some just extra strength and stiffness for these really large plus size tires. These are Schwalbe Supermoto X 27.5 by 2.8, and they've got a PSI range of 20 to 45, so you can really drop those down and get some comfort. I noticed that when I was handling this thing, leaning and turning, I almost have to like push into the turn a little bit, like a motorcycle. Otherwise the wheel, there's some drag, there's some friction there, but you do get a lot of comfort from those tires. And of course, the suspension, that's 120 millimeters of travel. We've got compression adjust with lockout all the way down, and then rebound at the bottom. It's an air fork, so it's relatively lightweight. These stanchions are black anodized, and they're 30 millimeter stanchions. You might hear like Fox 34. Those are slightly wider stanchions for heavy duty off-road riding, but this is still very capable. And I'm talking about off-road because I think you could swap these tires out pretty easily for some knobby nicks or some other off-road tire, and you could take this out on the trail. I mean, it's awesome. They've done a great job here, including rear rack bosses. So you could set this up for commuting if you wanted to, and you wouldn't have to use one of those beam racks that can get bumped out of the way. If you wanted to, you could replace the seat post. This is 31.6 millimeter by 350 millimeter tall. You could get a thud buster, a body float. Body float makes the Connect seat post suspension. They have like a carbon fiber version, so you could keep this thing really light if you wanted to. It's like 49.5 pounds. So the bike is pretty light, as is. Part of the reason it's not even lighter is because you've got the PowerPack 500, that's the high capacity battery from Bosch, 5.7 pounds on that, and then the Performance Line Speed motor, this weighs 8.8 pounds. So it's a very capable motor, up to 63 Newton meters of torque, decent drivetrain back here. We've got Shimano Deore, 10 sprockets, 11 to 42 teeth, so a really wide sprocket, and that allows you to climb easily, back to having this thing as an off-road vehicle if you wanted to. However, it's a class 3, so in California, where we're at right now, a lot of the trails restrict you to class 1, and again, this is class 3, so it's really ideal for commuting, just getting around town, comfort, maybe a little bit of like trails between streets and little off-road sections. Even with these tires, they're not super knobby, but they're going to give you good float and traction. I was riding this with no hands earlier, and it tracks nicely. Like, you know, it's just kind of a cool looking bike, and definitely suits me as someone with sensitive neck and back. Coming back down to the derailleur, it does have the one-way clutch, so this gray lever, if you put it in the down position, it's going to be a lot easier to service this rear wheel because it loosens up the tension. If you put it in the up position, it tightens the tension, and then you're not going to get as much chain bounce and slap. They do have a nice rubberized slap guard here on the right chainstay. Again, it's boost in the back, so 148 millimeter hub spacing. And I'm mentioning that because with the bigger tires, the boost hub spacing, think about what kind of rack you get. You might need to stretch it a little bit, or just make sure it's disc brake compatible as well. You can see on this side we've got a Magura. This is a dual piston caliper, but it's a larger piston, and then 180 millimeter disc brake rotor. There's a 12 millimeter through axle. You kind of flip this, quick release, and then lock it in, and then unwind it and pull that thing out. On the front, we've got an enormous 203 millimeter Magura rotor with quad piston calipers. So that's even more braking surface area, just really good power delivery. Awesome brake levers up here. These are 2-finger MT54, right and left. They're going to be a little bit easier to adjust and bring in if you need to, if you're wearing gloves or you have smaller hands, because again, 3 frame sizes on this. And then the way the fork is set up, we've got a tapered head tube, so 1 1/8 to 1.5 inches. It's going to be able to accept a whole range of other high-end forks, so you could toss that at some point, swap it out for something with even more options if you wanted to, again, as long as it's supporting this 15 millimeter through axle. I just love it. Like, the bike is awesome. And before I get too far, 45 millimeter inner diameter on these rims. See how they're really wide, so it's going to support the much wider plus size tires. Like, it's set up really well. I think it looks great in this satin metallic gray. We've got a little bit of just minimal, like glossy black and bronze or gold accents all around. We got the Raleigh little insignia crest there, established 1887 it's a British company, right? So this company has a lot of history behind it. I do also want to call out 18-tooth chainring up here, which is a little bit on the smaller side for a speed pedelec, but that goes back to like maybe using this a little bit of on-road and off-road. It's kind of a medium size. I've seen 15-tooth, I've seen 20-tooth. It does have an alloy, kind of a bash guard chain protector, so your pants will slough over it a little bit. These smaller sprockets, it spins 2.5 revolutions for every single crank revolution. That's part of the Bosch Performance line motors. There's a reduction gearing inside, so there's a little bit of drag if you're pedaling without power, or if you manage to get above the 28 miles per hour and you're just working yourself, like trying to pedal even faster. There's a little bit of friction in there, not a lot. In my opinion, it works very well. It's super responsive, but there's also a little bit more noise that's produced because of that reduction gearing. And again, the chain is slightly lower, so it might come into contact with that slap guard more. I've heard of some people talking about chain suck, where the chain kind of gets sucked up like that. But with that one-way clutch, I don't think it's going to happen that much. On the website, it said Shadow Plus too, which means like the derailleur's tucked in a little bit more beneath that chainstay. It's a great setup. So anyway, the motor, what it's measuring with the motor controller is rear wheel speed. There's a sensor right there and a magnet, pedal cadence, and pedal torque over 1,000 times per second. It's super responsive, and it has shift detection. So as you're going from those super low gears, climbing, and then transitioning to higher speeds, as you're shifting gears frequently, it's not going to mash as much, and this motor supports up to 120 RPM. So that's like, pedaling really fast. You don't have to shift gears in order to go faster like you do on some of the lower RPM motors, like the Yamaha PW series, some of the early Shimano motors, and some of the other entry-level Bosch motors. So this is an awesome motor, up to 63 Newton meters, as I said before. Nice Wellgo pedals. These are kind of the BMX style with raised pins, but they're not adjustable. They just look nice. It's nice to have something like this straight out of the box that isn't a cage style that's going to get bent and scratched up and just not give you as much surface area. If you look at the weight on this bike, it's all right there in the center, relatively low, and then the darker color scheme here with the black fork and all the black tubing and stuff matches the battery, which has some graphics on it. If you have an older PowerPack 400, it's compatible. It's the same size, dimensions, and everything, and you could swap that in. Maybe you have a rack, and then you can go touring with this thing, or just, take it even further. There's a little 5 LED readout here on the left, so you can see how full the battery is if it's off the frame. You can charge it on the frame if you want to, or you can take it off, which I'm going to try to do. Got the key here, and I do think it's an ABUS key, so you might be able to get like key to like. I'm not sure. I didn't see there's no tag with this because it's kind of a demo bike. So I twist it, and it's spring loaded, so it springs back. There we go. I weighed it 5.7 pounds. Sometimes these weigh 5.8 pounds, so I don't know. I weigh like every battery, and I try to be as precise as possible or accurate as possible. And yeah, this is the 36 volt, 13.4 amp hours, roughly 500 watt hours. See that metal ridge right there? Keeps the battery from, getting pulled off, wearing out over time. There's the plug on the bottom. It's the same exact plug. So you use this awesome charger right here. It's the standard Bosch charger. They do have a slightly lighter weight compact charger. This one weighs about 1.7 pounds, puts out 4 amps. So it's going to charge this pack pretty quickly. Again, just the proprietary plug. It's compact. One of my favorites. Definitely one of the leading chargers, leading battery designs in my opinion, and leading motor systems for a speed pedelec. Now, when you're putting the battery in, you want to push on it, and you hear that click, and that makes sure that it's set up right. So I'm going to pull out the key, and we might come up here to the cockpit. I already talked about the brake levers. We've got the ergonomic locking grips, so they aren't going to twist if you really bear down. It's a relatively short stem. I think this was 70 millimeters. It might go up to 90 if you get the large size frame. This is the medium size frame, and I measured all the specs, the standover height, the length, the width, everything back at the website, ElectricBikeReview.com. There's a 20 millimeter spacer and then 4 5 millimeters. So you could flip that stem if you wanted and then lower it and just get your really aggressive, or you can raise it in kind of that upright position like we see here. Over on the right, we've got a Shimano Deore trigger shifter. I like that this has two-way levers, so forward or back on the high gears, and then actually 3 shifts on the low. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so excellent just shifters. I like everything on this bike. Like it's really sweet. They've even got the Raleigh branded saddle. This is of course from Wellgo, and they call it Ergo Performance. Feels pretty good, you know. And again, I've got the seat post weight raised pretty high because I have a longer inseam. I'm 135 pounds, about 5'9" tall. So activating this bike is pretty simple. Just come up here and press the power button on top of the display. This is the Bosch Purion. Boots up very quickly. Plus and minus buttons over here to raise and lower assist. There's a walk mode at the bottom, and you can activate that as long as you're not in off. See, like I'm gonna arrow down off, there's no assist. As long as you're in level Eco, Tour, Sport, or Turbo, then walk mode will work. You press it and then you hold the plus button. That can be handy for a bike that's almost 50 pounds with the bigger tires and stuff. If you're in sand, or maybe it's just loose terrain, you can't climb anymore, or you just wanna walk with a friend, you get a flat tire, walk mode's gonna help you, just 3 or 4 miles per hour. It helps the bike move forward. Before I get into the rest of the display settings, I want to point out that there is a micro USB port on the side of this, but it is not active. That's for diagnostics only, and I wish Bosch would activate that, because it is active if you get the Intuvia. It's the much larger display panel that's center mounted. This one's more hidden, it's sleek, it might even be tougher, but it's not removable. You can't swivel it. It doesn't have the functioning micro USB. There's no power. I've tried it, I've plugged into it. I don't know why they didn't enable that. But coming back to the display, we have speed up top, miles per hour, 5 ticks on the battery infographic, which I wish there was 10 or a percentage or something more precise, because right now I have 4 out of 5. Is that 80% or 70? Or, I mean, how, like, when you get down to just 1 tick, you don't really know. And I try to avoid getting all the way down to 1 tick, because that's 20% roughly. And then the chemistry on these lithium-ion batteries can start to get funky, and just, I've heard that it wears them out quicker. Also, I try to store my packs in a cool, dry location. Extreme heat and cold can be rough on them, and I check them every month or so if I haven't ridden the bike. Just kind of top it off, keep it nice. The good news is, you know, these are easy to come by. You could always buy a replacement and wouldn't have all these stickers, but I think it would still look pretty good because this is a black frame. And if you're touring, let's say that you're shipping this to some other country, it's hard to fly with battery packs. But, you know, Bosch is kind of everywhere. You could borrow or rent a pack on site. And again, just look at the tubing here, really smooth welds. I think this is hydroformed, and it's stepped in right here. So the battery is like a little bit lower, and then you've got clearance here for opening it. The Bosch battery doesn't slide out side to side, it has to come up, and so they needed at least enough clearance there to allow that to happen. And I'm seeing here that not a lot of the cables are internally routed. A couple of them are, some of the power stuff is, but not the brake and looks like shifter line. Also, this motor casing is a little bit old, it's sort of dated. It's the plastic, you know, oval design. I've seen some of the performance line motors that are tipped up and actually integrated into the frame. They look really nice. It'd be cool if they could do that. But stepping back again, I actually think that looks okay, and that might be part of the cost savings approach they've got. This bike is still kind of expensive. It's $3,499, so, you know, $3,500 is not bad for like a top-of-the-line speed motor with a top-of-the-line battery, really good suspension, really good brakes, nice tires. The tires do have performance line race guard, so it's like puncture protection that's supposed to be, you know, fast rolling. So it's like race guard, kind of a balance on that. Keep an eye on the PSI on those, and yeah, just I'm not sure if you can run them tubeless or not. I didn't see anything about that. So coming back up to the display, we've got speed, we've got the battery infographic, we talked about walk mode. If you want to change from miles per hour to kilometers per hour, just hold the minus and tap the power button, and that's it, switches. If you want to change some of these readouts down here, like right now we're in assist level, I hold the minus key. Now it says, here's our trip distance. Hold it again, there's our total distance. Hold it again, there's our range. And range is so cool, it's dynamic. So if I'm up here at turbo, it says 14 miles. If I arrow down to eco, it dynamically updates and says 40 miles. That's based on your last mile or so of riding, as well as the battery capacity. So it's a neat, like, it gives you a profile. It's gonna be different for everyone based on your weight, how much effort you're putting in when you pedal. It's a neat system for sure. If we go back here to, let's see, trip distance, I can clear that by holding minus and pressing plus, and see how it said reset there for a second? That's pretty cool. And then if we had lights wired in, you could hold the plus button, and then there's a light icon. It says error right now. I don't know, this is a demo bike. Hopefully I didn't break it. But yeah, otherwise that would have been the lights. And it's cool, a lot of shops can wire in directly from the motor controller, and you can run a headlight and a tail light, and you imagine like a rack setup. This bike, there's just so many possibilities. I really like how it handles. Aside from like the heavier weight of the wheel, you know, the steering slows down and there's a little bit of rubbing on those tight turns. But otherwise, it just looks so cool, and there's a lot of comfort and the high speed. It's exciting. So enough talk. I'm gonna hop on this thing and just take a little ride around the complex here. Let's do it. I like to test ride in the highest level of assist, turbo, so you can hear the motor and we can accelerate the fastest. So there we go. I'm in a low gear now, so I need to shift, but I'm gonna try to show you the shifting, and you can listen for that shift detection. It should just be a little bit easier on the drivetrain. There we go. Feeling pretty good. Nice and stable. Not past 20, and I didn't have to shift again because of that 120 RPM. The cadence thing is really nice. This time I'm gonna shift up a little bit and do a little bit more speed. Okay guys, this is a really good filming setup because there's no chain cover or anything. You can see that 18-tooth sprocket with the alloy guard I was talking about. You can see the 10 sprockets back here and the chain. I'm gonna shift through the gears. I'm gonna be riding in turbo. Listen for that shift detection. Watch how quickly the chainring spins, like right when I start pedaling and right when I stop. It's just right there. It's one of the fastest that I've seen. During this trip, I've been reviewing some Brose, some Yamaha, and it's one of the fastest, the most responsive. I'm gonna start off without any assist and just pedal so you can get some idea for the noise, for the drag. I know you can't feel it because you're not here on the bike with me. It's really not that much drag because you do have these 175mm crank arms giving you a great mechanical advantage over the reduction gear. I just want to be fair and kind of show you all the different performance characteristics. So it's off right now. I'm just gonna pedal. Okay, now I'm going into turbo mode. Awesome. And I was getting some bob because I was standing up and pedaling there. You can lock out that suspension fork and make it even stiffer, a little bit more efficient. You're still getting a lot of cushion from those tires, which is nice. Not bad. That's single finger braking action going on there with the front brake. They're not squeaking. They're giving me good stopping power. I think that's about it, guys. That's the Raleigh Lore IE. Definitely one of my favorites. I'm excited about the way it looks, the sizes, the fit, the comfort. For the full write-up on this, including standover height, length, width, all the stuff I talked about, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Have fun out there. Of course, with the Speed Pedelec, ride safe.